Hello and welcome to the London Bulls podcast with me, KD, and my good friend Tom. Tom, how are you, my friend? Good to see you.
Yes, very well, mate. Yeah, good to see you as well. Good to see you as well. We're back with another interview. Ex Hereford United player. So yeah, looking forward to this one, mate.
You'll have all recognised a very familiar face over the years. Mr. Marc Pugh, welcome. Really good to see you. A lot of Hereford fans will reminisce on your amazing season with us, but how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you guys? You doing all right?
Yeah, all
Really
good, mate.
good.
All good. Yeah. Looking forward to this, mate. I can't wait to chat to you about Hereford, obviously, and your career after that, where you went from height to height, really. We were. I think we were all probably hoping that you were going to make the England team, but just because we could say he played for us. So before we get to that, obviously, professional footballer. How did you start? When did you start playing football, and when did you realise that you were maybe quite good at it?
Yeah, so I was 4 years old. I got given my first pair of football boots, and I just loved learning new skills. And there was an academy called Rossendale Academy, which was local to me, and there was some local coaches who just wanted to help inspire kids to get out there, play, run around. And back then, it was everyone chasing the ball. There was no positional sense whatsoever. We were just running, having a good time with your mates, and then we'd do technical drills to try and improve your technical ability. I learned from a very young age the cross turn and the chops and my game as I got older, and it just stayed with me. So yeah, 4 years old, loved the game. My mum and dad was they travelled all over to locally at first. A lot of local games. Started playing probably match environment from the age of about 6 years old, something like that. And just loved it. Loved scoring goals. Loved that feeling of being out with my mates, running around. If I weren't playing with them, I'd just be kicking my ball against the wall in the garden. And I was just obsessed with it.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Yeah, I think we all sort of dream at 6, 7 that we're going to be the next big thing. I think it was David Beckham probably when I was growing. Then it was obviously the next Marc Pugh. I wanted to be the next Marc Pugh. You mentioned obviously your parents there. I mean, when you talk to footballers, that's one of the things they sort of say is that there was somebody, whether it was their parents, grandparents, whatever, that took them to football, that got them to where they were today. Is that something that you would say yourself, is that your family were important to you?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous commitment, and it's an investment for not only their time but money, travel. Saturdays and Sundays. I played Saturday and Sunday, so they had no weekend, and working 9-to-5 jobs. It's difficult, and at the time you don't appreciate it. You really don't when you're a young kid. I took for granted saying thank you for that lift when I was but now I take my daughters to netball, and last night she had a game at 9 o'clock in the evening on.
Wow.
It's ridiculous time, and it was a 45-minute journey as well. So we didn't get back until late. I had a busy day at work, and she's really grateful, and she does say thank you. But I think back then, did I really show how much it meant to me? But yeah, they play a massive part in that rise, and obviously if you're not playing in that competitive environment against other kids at grassroots level, I don't think you'll get to where you want to be, because that competitive side of me will never leave, and I never let my kids win anything. I think you've got to be wanting to win everything. But yeah, my parents played a big part in that, and you mentioned in your previous question, when did I know I was good enough to be a professional footballer? And I always had that incredible self-belief. It seemed a long way away when you're so young, but I mean, visualization, I did that without knowing what it was from a young age. Visualize scoring that goal in front of a crowd and seeing the smiles on the faces. That was what I absolutely loved. So yeah, but no, like I say, they played a massive part in that.
Amazing, Mark. And when you started out with Burnley's youth setup, how did that kind of happen, and how did you kind of find being amongst some really good players in that first division club?
Yeah, so I played a lot of grassroots football. I played with Rossendale Town team. team called Michelin over in Burnley. Michelin Tyres, as you'll probably know them. We had a decent team, lots of ability in there. Waterfoot, which was another local team. So I just played for the enjoyment up until probably the age of 13, 14. At 13, I went for a trial to Bury. I was there for a while, and I got told I wasn't good enough from quite a young age. So I left Bury, went back to play grassroots, signed for Michelin, and I scored 10 goals against Bacup Borough, a team we were playing. We beat them 23-0. And the Burnley scout was there. And so it was quite a walloping. I'm glad I weren't on the other team. I'd have been sent off. But yeah, it was, you need to be, as good as you are, you need to be in the right place at the right time. Sometimes you need someone to take a liking to you and just trust the process. And I went for a trial at Burnley, and they really liked me. And I think I signed for Burnley at either 14, 15 years old. I can't remember the exact dates. And on the back of that, I had a really good couple of seasons, got offered a scholarship. And at the age of 16, it was a real test of my character, because it was in modern day football, it's a lot like you need to be careful what you say to players and stuff, especially with the everything that's going around about mental health and things like that. Some people might take it the wrong way, but yeah, it was really old school back then, and it really did build me up to be the character I am today.
Love that. And then whilst you're at Burnley, you went on loan to Kidderminster. In the National League, I mean, that must have been quite a big learning curve, actually, going into that kind of adult environment. Real tough standard of play in that league. How did you kind of find that experience?
Yeah, really enjoyable. It was, so 16 years old, youth team football, I was really thriving. I was playing well, scoring goals every week, and I was standing out. We had a good team back then. We had a lot of players in that team who went on to have good careers. We had Jay Rodriguez, Kyle Lafferty, Chris McCann. They've had good careers, and we had a few others as well. And I went on loan to Kidderminster. I think I played about 8 games on the initial loan spell. I ended up getting on the Soccer M showboat for doing a rainbow flick over someone's head. Half volley and they scored off it. So it was a good assist. I can't find the footage anyway, to be honest. It's just nowhere to be seen, but I'd love to get hold of the footage, because I took a shocking first touch. It hit my shin, bounced off the defender's shin, came back to me, and I rainbow flicked it over his head. So that was a good experience. But no, it was 16, 17 years old when you go on loan to the conference. You know you're in for a battle. It's not going to be pretty football. And I got kicked to death. It was being away from home as well. It built me up as a person. And I had to fend for myself as well. Obviously, I was in digs. I was getting food provided for me. But I think it's what you do away from the club. It really does transfer onto the pitch.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think as a young player going sort of off away from home, for the first time for a long time that's a tough thing to do, isn't it? Obviously, eventually you're released from Burnley and you go to Bury. What's that experience like, especially as a young guy? You've just been released, and do you think everything's sort of over, or do you, again, you say you've got great self-belief, so maybe you didn't quite think that drastically?
No, yeah, it was heartbreaking, to be honest. I was a Burnley fan, and I remember for 3 or 4 days I was really down. I was, especially after, so I was on the bench at 16 years old for Burnley. Stan Turnant loved me at the time, the first team manager. Terry Pashley, Vince Overson, the youth team managers, they really pushed me and made me the player I was, because they were old school, but in the right way. They cared about the players, worked you hard. And I was on the bench at Villa Park, 16 years old. I played against Man United in Stan Turnant's testimonial. I ended up scoring a goal. Paul Scholes and Giggs played that day as well. And that was really good to be involved in at a young age. And when Stan Turnant left the club, Steve Cottrell came in, and he didn't really see eye to eye with me as a player. And I believe everything happens for a reason. But when I was 18, I scored 17 goals in 11 games for Burnley. And it's good statistics. And I thought, I'm a decent player, not a bad player. And I remember I was bricking myself, because I had about 2-3 about 3 months left on my contract, my scholarship contract, and it was around March time. And I thought, I'm going to have to see where I'm at. I'm in his plans, and I was stood outside his door. And Steve Cottrell, I don't know whether you've ever come across him in football, he's not the most approachable guy when you're a young lad and you want to speak to him and be honest and have an open, honest conversation with him. So I just said to him, I said, Gaffer, I'm just wondering if I'm in your plans, and I just want to get a bit of clarity on my situation. And he just said, you're not good enough to be a professional footballer. Those were his words. And yeah, it was really tough to take at the time. And but that's part and parcel of it. And I believe it built my character. So when I had that conversation with him, at least I had clarity. So obviously for 3 or 4 days, really down. I began speaking to people, though. I think that's really important that you do open up, you speak to family members. Going back to my younger days when I was 4, one of the academy coaches called Andy Sasamovic, he had a connection with Bury Football Club. And he put me in contact with Dusty, with Ian Miller, and he was the assistant under Chris Casper at the time. And he got me to go for a trial. I went for a little trial period. I'm still under contract with Burnley, but they really liked what they saw after a few weeks. So they signed me on until the end of the season. I think I played about 11 games, something like that. And rather than playing youth team and reserve team football, where I was at the moment, it opened the doors up for me to go and express myself for Bury, and they ended up signing me on a year contract on the back of that. So yeah, it was from going to feeling absolutely horrendous and heartbroken, I really gained that self-belief again.
Yeah, and what was that time like at Bury? Obviously, again, you're young. There's a lot to learn. How did you find that experience?
It was great because we had a great squad. We had some talented players, and it was local to me as well. It was 20, 25 minutes down the road. I enjoyed going into training. I played 45 games that season, ended up scoring in the FA Cup. I think I finished 4 or 5 goals that season as well. And it was brilliant to play at that level and express myself. And I was flying as well. 4 or 5 months into the season, playing really good football, I had quite a bit of interest, and Bury offered me a contract. And I was young at the time. I had an agent. I'd sort of just listened to my agent, and he said, look, just concentrate on your football. Don't sign your contract. You're worth more than that. And that's what I did. And I was just trying to stay out of the manager's eye line, really, and just concentrate on my football. But the club and the fans sort of got wind that I weren't signing my contract for what they'd offered. And yeah, I sort of got dropped from the squad and ended up playing in the reserves again because I wouldn't sign my contract. So yeah, that was a tricky period.
Do you think, you say, everything happens for a reason, I suppose. Do you think, because we see a lot of it now, don't we, with footballers, Rashford, for example, is an example of that. But would you do it differently? Would you sign the contract, or would you change the way you went about things?
No, because I've always had faith that that like I said, that everything happens for a reason. And I always look back, and if I wouldn't have rejected that contract, I wouldn't have played in the reserve game against Man City, and we ended up drawing 2-2, and I scored 2 goals. And the Shrewsbury town manager was watching that game, and he signed me on a 3-year contract on the back of it. So things align in the right way, and I think if you've got a faith and a strong belief, and you're consistent with everything you do, you stay disciplined, you've got the right mindset, then things come good. Obviously, like I said, you need that right person to be watching at the right time, and you can't just go and visualize and not put the work in either. So it's just trying to tick as many boxes as you can, and you've got to give it everything you've got. I say to young players all the time, treat every training session and every match like it's your last, because you never know when it's going to end. I retired a lot younger than I thought I would have done, just due to circumstances, which we'll probably get into at some point. But no, I wouldn't change a thing that went on throughout my career. These things you look back on and think, could have maybe dealt with that a little bit better. But yeah, no, I have no regrets.
You mentioned the Shrewsbury manager. We went to our arch rivals, Mark. How was that time up there then? How was it kind of settling up in Shrewsbury?
Yeah, it was good because I met my wife in school. She was 14, I was 15 at the time, and we've been together ever since. And we moved away from home, so it was great for us. We got to know each other a little bit better, and Shrewsbury was a lovely place to live. And Gary Peters at the time, he played me. I think when you're young, you want to play football, and I think in the first season, I can't remember the exact stats, but I played probably 40 in and around 40 games that season. New stadium, good fan base, atmosphere was good. Again, I was flourishing. I was playing really well. A lot of interest around Christmas time, same old scenario. And then I don't know whether it was my first or my second season, I got like a slight label tear in my groin, and I was trying to play through it. And I remember we actually played, I think it might have been the second season actually, we actually played Rotherham away, and it's a horrible place to go, Rotherham. It was back in the day anyway, I can't remember the name of it. Was it, you guys might.
Is it Millmore?
It's now the New York
ground?
Stadium.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is now. It used to be.
Yeah, it was the old stadium anyway. And I tried playing through the first half, and I was in agony with this tear in my groin, and we were getting battered. It was an horrible game. And I said at half time to Gary, I said, look, I'd love to, I'm really struggling. I'm going to have to come off. So back then it was like old school. He said, oh, you're faking it. Like, you're sacking it off just because we're getting beat. And I just said, look, I'm not that type of character anyway. He pulled me off because I said I couldn't carry on. And the next day I went for a scan, and it showed I had a label tear in my groin and tendonitis in my hip flexor, just because I was overcompensating. So I went in his office the next day. I didn't get an apology. It was one of them. Wow, you're soft as shit. So it's like, yeah, it's one of them. But Gary was great. He was old school, and again, he really toughened me up. And I think you look back and you think, yeah, maybe in today, if you get a little bit of a niggle, you don't play. But yeah, I really did play through some horrible injuries, and that was a really good time for me, Shrewsbury. I met some really good friends along the way as well.
Then the big move happened. The big move, dream move to Hereford United, March 2009. So we were bottom of League One. Was that loan move because of you coming back from that injury? What was the kind of reasoning coming out on loan to us?
No, so I was fit again. There was a change of manager. Paul Simpson came in, and basically he wasn't playing me consistently. We signed quite a few bodies, and I wasn't getting the game time I felt like I needed. So I can't remember the exact conversation with my agent, but he said, look, you need to get out and play. And Hereford came in. You were in League One at the time, which it was no brainer for me. I couldn't get in a League Two team, but League One, Hereford wanted me on the books. And it was great, actually. Really enjoyed that little loan spell. I think played 8 games. We ended up getting relegated, didn't we, in the end, to League Two, unfortunately. But I felt like I played some decent football, testing myself at an higher level, and I felt I coped with it quite well. And it got towards the end of the season. I still had a year left on my contract at Shrewsbury. I just got married, and we were on our honeymoon, and I got a phone call from my agent, and my agent said to me, even though you've got a year left on your contract at Shrewsbury, I've spoke to the manager, and they want to offer you this payout. It was nowhere near what my contract was worth. He said, you either take it or you spend a season in the reserves. So like, I was on my honeymoon, I had no choice but to take it because I weren't sitting in the reserves for a year. And me and the wife was having a conversation because I was here, there and everywhere. League Two getting released. Told her wasn't good enough here, there and everywhere. And she just said to me, like, where do we go from here? And I said, look, I'm going to play in the Premier League one day. I remember saying it to her, and I had that. I might have been a little bit naive because I was a million miles away from it, but I just always had that focus on playing at the top level and testing myself against the best players in the world. And it was about 3-4 days later, just try and enjoy our honeymoon and get it out your head what had gone on, and just live in the present really. And my agent called me and said, I've just had a phone call with Hereford and they want to sign you for next year. And I jumped at the chance. I didn't even care what the money was. He sorted all that out. I thought, this is an opportunity now. Hereford, they were in League One last year. They've obviously got a decent squad, so maybe push on next year in League Two and get promoted. Yeah, want to do it and get it finalised, and then sign for the mighty Hereford in League One.
When you came in, was it really hard, because obviously morale must have been really low in that League One season, and obviously we did get relegated. Was it quite difficult playing in those circumstances, would you say?
I think if I remember rightly, there was a massive transition, and we completely changed the squad. So there was loads of signings. There was Jamie Tolley came in, Ryan Valentine, Matt Doan. Was Matt Doan there the previous season? He might have been there.
Yeah.
We had so that was our car school. We had me, Ryan Valentine, Jamie Tolley, Kenny Lunt, who was I don't know how he did it every day, to be honest. He was travelling from Runcorn. So what he'd do, he'd travel from Runcorn, he'd meet Matt Doan in Wrexham, and then they'd come through to Shrewsbury at Dobby's Roundabout, meet me at Dobby's Roundabout, and then en route in Ludlow, we'd meet Jamie Tolley. So it was like our little car school. So I only had like an hour and 15 minutes to travel from Shrewsbury every day, and then Kenny Lunt had like 2.5, 3 hours every day, and it was ridiculous. He stayed fit as well, which was bizarre. But so we had our little car school, and then we'd stay over on a Friday night before a game on a Saturday. Richard Rose was staying in Diggs, and he was staying in the big house, so we all stayed over, had a game of FIFA the night before games and stuff, and had some pre-match together, and really good times. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that second season and that League Two season, obviously didn't quite do as well as we'd hoped probably in that season. Obviously John Truick had taken over. What was because he was a very good assistant manager from our experience from outside. What was he like as a manager, and was he a little bit maybe out of his depth doing what he was doing?
I just loved Graham and John. They were very old school. It was really old school, and training was it was interesting. I'll leave it. It was interesting. it was, but no, I quite like. You're only as good sometimes as the players you put out on the field. I mean, you've seen some managers who aren't particularly great coaches, great managers, but they're fantastic man managers, and players go out on the pitch and they want to play for them. And we wanted to be successful for Hereford, but for one reason or another, we just weren't getting results and performances. You've got small squads as well. Back then, we had a really small squad, not a big budget. You get 1 or 2 injuries, and you've got to bring a few young lads in, which makes it really difficult. Can you remember what position we finished that season? Was it about 16th?
16th it was, yeah.
Like that. So I mean, we promised a lot in pre-season, if I remember that rightly. We battered Bristol City. We played them off the park, and then got to the season and we just couldn't buy a result for quite large periods. I enjoyed my season. I felt like I was scoring goals, getting assists. I felt like we were leaking goals a little bit, and I think that's why in League Two you need that really real structure, and you need to go through phases of play and patterns of play a lot. And not a lot of coaches did that back then, to be honest. And I think we fell short of defending set plays. And I think that was probably the major issue, really. And Tony Ford, who was a fitness coach, he was 70 at the time. So he was very old school, and we were doing doggies running with weights and stuff like that. So it was a bit eye-opening. it was fun and games.
Yeah, I think every player we've spoken to has mentioned Tony Ford's routines. Let's say.
I never forget. Literally, I'm sat in there doing a gym session. Tony Ford's like ripping his top off, showing it. He was in great nick for 70. It's like, Pugh, you've got to eat like a professional, and he'd pull like chicken breasts out of his pocket and start eating chicken breasts. He'd carry chicken breasts around in his pocket. Unbelievable.
Incredible. Those things stick with you, don't they? So obviously, in that season, we played obviously Bournemouth, and you scored three times that season against them. Probably a sign of things to come, and probably the manager, Eddie Howe, probably thought, this lad's not too bad. But were there sort of moments in that season where you thought, yeah, I'm starting to really play well now, and I feel like I'm becoming a bit more of that player that I wanted to be?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a person never to really think too much into things. I was just focusing on, I know it's a cliche, I was just focusing on doing well for Hereford, doing well in that next game and showing people what I could do, because I believe the rest will take care of itself. And I think throughout the season, if you start thinking of what can happen, then it's going to affect your performance. And it wasn't until like March, April time that I caught wind that Bournemouth were interested. I think they had me watch. I know the scout really well, Des Taylor, and he said he came to watch me 8 times over the course of since scored the 2 goals in the home fixture, and Eddie Howe took a bit of a shining to me. So he just said, "I want you to go watch him for 8 games. I want you to go watch him at the horrible games, Notts County's away, all the horrible grounds when it's a Tuesday night, and I want you to see what his character's like." So that was quite eye opening that someone has to watch you 8 times but now everything's done online and they'll watch a player and they'll sign him on the back of it. But no, it was just taking it one game at a time, staying injury free first and foremost. I mean, in football now, it's really important that you get momentum and you do everything you can to be the best player you can be. And especially with the travel, with the long journeys every single day, if you don't tick the boxes off the field, then it's not going to transfer on. So I tried to tick as many boxes as possible and be the best I could be for Hereford, and then the rest came with it.
You've talked about you were saying to your wife that you're going to play in the Premier League one day before the season started, and it's been quoted. You said moving to Hereford in that permanent move, it felt like a last opportunity. Did you do something different in pre-season that year? Like, you had such a great year. Was there anything you changed in terms of mentality or things you were doing? What was it that made you such a great season that year?
Yeah, I mean, I always did my own pre-season, and I was well structured. And I mean, I went away. I always had my 2 weeks holiday. I try and rest, recharge, but I can never fully switch off. I always tick over with a gym. And I just remember like 3 weeks before going back to pre-season, just not killing myself, because a lot of people do too much in off-season. It's about being structured, get yourself, in a good place, get your body robust, but you don't want to be optimally fit coming back to pre-season, because around Christmas time, that's where you can blow up if you've done too much. So I just wanted to get myself in a good place, did a lot of strength training, conditioning, making sure my body was strong. And then nothing can ever get you ready for a Hereford pre-season, that's for sure, when you're running with weight, doing doggies and stuff like that. Remember when it snowed, Tony Ford, he took his top off and he was doing press-ups in the snow, and he said, "You can eat the snow as long as it's not yellow," and he was eating the snow. So nothing can prepare you for that. But I just felt like in a really good place, and I think off the field, I was starting to recover a lot better, rather than spend too much time on your feet away. Make sure you're resting up and focusing on what you can do on the field. And at the time, I didn't have kids either, so I could just go and relax, recharge, and get myself ready for the next game.
What were your initial impressions, like kind of day one walking through the door? You talk about Tony Ford and like some of the stuff you were doing, and how did you kind of find the setup of Hereford? Did you like it all?
Well, I didn't really have much to compare it to be honest, but it was an eye opener when I walked through, and literally, I remember meeting some of the staff. They were so friendly, and I love the atmosphere at Edgar Street. It's got such great history, and it's old school, and I love that type of feel, and I love playing there because the surface was good as well, especially on a Tuesday night. But I enjoy it. I mean, it was a bit odd, like, so you meet at the stadium, and then you travel to the training ground, which was like 25 minutes away with traffic and stuff. So it was a little bit all over the place, but you just get on with it. And at the end of the day, I was brought up a little bit old school anyway, and I think it makes you a stronger person if you're not having everything spoon fed to you. I think if I look back and I started at, say, you know, a Liverpool or United, and I got everything done for me, everything was pristine, I played on these beautiful pitches, I didn't have to do any travelling, I live around the corner, then I might not have appreciated the journey like I do today.
Yeah. So obviously the end of the season then, contract's up at Hereford, they offer you a 2-year contract, but more importantly, that's okay. We forgive you. Don't worry. Just got over it. But obviously Bournemouth come in and offer you a contract. They've got obviously promoted. They're in League One now. So again, don't blame me for doing that. Obviously, so it was £100,000 in the end tribunal. Was that a fair valuation of your talents at the time?
Quite funny actually. So end of the season came, and Hereford really wanted me to sign that contract. They offered me £100 less than I was on the previous season. So it's one of the things. Like I say, they offered me a 2-year contract, but Bournemouth wanted, you know, they'd been promoted to League One. I really liked. I met Eddie Howe, and I loved what he stood for, his attention to detail and everything, and his ambition. That ticked a lot of boxes. So it was a difficult situation to be in, because I had to convince my wife. Obviously, gradually moved further down south. We were 2.5 hours away from home anyway. How about we moved 6 hours away from home? And like in League One as well, Bournemouth, you know, a few years before, they were, you know, dipping their hands in the pockets, fans, to try and keep the club alive. So it wasn't for the money, because I had to sort of move out. I'd be less off, really. So it was for the opportunity and for League One football, and then that progression, really. So it was just like, what do I do? And we had so many conversations at the time. We didn't know whether it was right, but it was when we met Eddie Howe, we just knew, and the type of person he was, family man, his coaching, his philosophy, and, you know, everything he stood for, I just wanted to buy into. And that was the best thing I ever did, because I spent 9 seasons there, and that incredible journey I went on was. You know, a lot of it was down to Eddie. Well, most of it was because he turned that club around. It was. I say Hereford was. It'll live long in my memory bank. Some of the experiences and times I've had at Hereford, but I think it was the right decision, and I don't regret it.
No. A particular highlight from your time at Hereford? What was the kind of one memory that you love most, whether it's a goal or a game?
Yeah, I mean, when I think. Going back to the Bournemouth one, when we beat them 2-1, and they were on that incredible run, 20-odd game unbeaten run, and we just proved that night what we could actually do against a top team. They had Steve Fletcher up front. We defended really well. It was pouring down, if I remember rightly. It weren't a pleasant night, and I just, memories. I made some really good friends with Hereford, and I think that night really does stand out for me.
And Tom obviously touched on that fee. I think initially Bournemouth put in 35k, and then it obviously went to 100. Was there a bit of pressure on that? Obviously in League One, you're talking about Bournemouth having to raise money the previous year and things like that. Did you feel that a little bit going into the season? Or?
Yeah, sorry, I bypassed the story, didn't I? How I got too ahead of myself with that. So it was. I think it was 60k initially, and then an extra 10 based on appearances went up to 100. It was something like that anyway. But I actually went to the tribunal with Jeff Mostyn, the Bournemouth chairman, and we had a cracking day in London, honestly. It was amazing. such a great person, and for a chairman to like welcome you with open arms. He said, "Pugh, let's meet on the train. We'll meet at the train station going to London." So we spent 2.5 hours on the train together, and he said, "I'll tell you what, let's go to Tribunal, and I'll treat you to some lunch." Anyway, he was devastated with a fee, like, because Bournemouth didn't have ridiculous amounts of money back then, and he just thought it was going to be like 20-30 grand, because when you're with a club for just say a year, there's not a lot of development gone into that process. It's not like I was with the club for 6-7 years. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock to him. And he got out of the meeting and he's absolutely devastated. I'll tell you what though, I'll go treat you to a Selfridges lunch. So we went to Selfridges, and I was just like, me being me, I'll just have a little pasta dish, please. And he's like, "Oh, I'll have a glass of your finest champagne." And then he's like, "Oh, let's go to the watch shop. I need a new face on my watch." So he was just a bundle of energy and incredible guy. And you've probably seen him online when we got promoted to the Premier League. We were throwing him up in the air and stuff like that. So he was infectious, and he played a big part in the rise as well of the club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need characters like that in the game, don't you? Definitely. So obviously you mentioned, so we obviously mentioned about Bournemouth. You mentioned about Eddie Howe. What was he like, especially in those early days? Obviously he'd not long been managing really, and he was probably still learning his craft. But what was he like in those early days at Bournemouth?
Yeah, he was on it. Training was recorded. He was good family man, really ambitious, but his attention to detail was incredible. I mean, you do, if you're doing a rondo and someone was having a nightmare or something and he had to do a forfeit of 10 press-ups, if you did 9, he would see that. He'd watch training back and he'd have you in the office the next day. Why didn't you do 10 press-ups? So it was like small things like that. He's a big believer in, if you brush things under the carpet and don't do things properly, it will soon catch up with you. So improving those small things every day is massive. But he's so approachable as well. So if you had any issues off the field, on the field, his door was always open, and he'd be willing. If you were honest with him, he'd respect you, and he'd go above and beyond for you. Even when training had finished, he'd be out there for 40-45 minutes. If you're a striker and you want to do extra finishing, he'd get the coaches to put on sessions and stuff like that. And anything you ask, it's never too much for him.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, you had that self-belief in yourself. Did you think of him as a manager that could go on and manage at the top level like he's doing now?
I always thought he was good, and he had that period. I mean, when I signed for Bournemouth, 5-6 months into me signing, he moved to Burnley. So that was difficult because I'd moved all the way down there for the manager, and then he moved to Burnley where I'd been released from. And I was like, I had an unbelievable first 5 months with Bournemouth as well. I was scoring goals. I think I must have been on 10, 11 goals by Christmas time, playing really well. Ended up getting all sorts of phone calls off Jason Tindall at the time. "We've got your shirt up, Fury, like giving it all. You'll be coming home to Burnley." And next news, they signed Keith Trucey, left winger, who played in my position, but he went for championship experience. So I don't quite know what went on with that one. But again, going back to that, having that faith, and everything happening for a reason. I probably didn't sign for Burnley because they were due to come back to Bournemouth, and I was supposed to go on that roller coaster journey with them. But yeah, it was. He's always had that. He's always had something that you thought, yeah, he's going to be special at some point.
Yeah.
What do you think was the kind of key ingredients for that great period of success, like your promotions and then stabilizing the Premier League? Well, what was it about the team or the club and even the manager that made you so successful?
I think it was a culture we built, the players we signed and the recruitment. He didn't sign anyone who was too big time or anything like that. And if they did come in and they were trying to give it a big, and he'd bring them back down pretty quickly. So we signed good lads who wanted to be successful, push in the right direction. First and foremost, he had that work ethic. They were a good family person, and he'd dig deep into the background of the player as well. And when he left and then came back, I was shocked. I was under a bit of a contract situation. I'd refused the contract because I knew there was a lot of players. I was like performing really well at the time. A lot of players who came in. We signed Frank Demouge and Lorenzo Davids on like really big contracts, and they were trying to pull the wool over my eyes when it came to offering me a contract, tying me down 3-4 years, and I just thought, no, I'm worth more than that, and that's what my agent told me. So I just kept with that, and as soon as Eddie Howe signed his contract, so basically we were playing Leyton Orient in a game, and Eddie Howe was watching in the stand. I ended up scoring that night, playing really well, and the next day he just came in and offered me a contract on a better deal, and he said, "You're signing it," and it was a good thing I held off, because he really helped me with that. We were in League One at the time. We'd signed Matt Ritchie, and I think when he came back as well, we were like 17th in the league. And that was a year we went on that push and got promoted. It was just ridiculous. Signed some good players, and that roller coaster journey, getting promoted from League One to the Championship, and then Championship to the Premier League. You look back and you're like, how did that actually happen? The squad we had, we kept the squads through the leagues. We maybe added 2 or 3 signings each season, nothing massive. We didn't pay massive money, and the culture just made it. And I think because we all had that faith in Eddie Howe and his coaching staff, and we believed in what they believed in. I'm a massive believer that positivity is infectious. Negativity is also infectious. And if you surround yourself with the right people, then you're going to be successful.
You described the moment when you got promoted from the Championship. Like, that must have been so surreal. And then, over that summer, the buzz around the club to making your kind of debut in the Premier League. What was that kind of period over that summer like?
It was a blur. I remember us when we got promoted from League One to the Championship, we had a nice little trip to Vegas paid for, which was nice. And then from the Championship to the Premier League, because we had that initial first season in the Championship where we it took us a little while to get going. We were finding our feet. I think we ended up finishing mid-table, something like that. And that was the first season I'd ever tested myself at Championship level. That's when I did my 18-module nutrition diploma. I tried to gain an edge, and I'm a big believer in that fueling for performance. And I wish I knew what I knew now back when I was 19, 20 years old, because I would have been flying at Edgar Street at 23 years old. So that was a game changer for me, because I was running further in games. My mental clarity was better. My mood was better with my family. And after that initial period in the Championship, the following season, when I brought everything together, the nutrition, doing my yoga mobility, doing my reformer, making sure I recovered properly, and I just went from strength to strength, and team just started buying into different things as well. And obviously, the higher up you go, the better facilities you get as well. We have more access to gyms, better pitches, didn't have to do as much travelling. So they're the luxuries that come with getting there. And I think once we started getting our breakfast, lunch on one site, and the chefs were brilliant, they go above and beyond for you. And sports science teams got bigger, physio departments, you got 10 different people rather than 1 and 2 to lean on. You got masseuses and stuff like that. I think that is when everyone started taking, things off the field much more seriously. And it wasn't just 1 and 2 players buying into that. It was everyone. And I think that's why we were successful in the second season. And when we battered Birmingham 8-0 and then Fulham 5-1 away from home, I think that's when that incredible self-belief just shone through, and we all knew we were going to go on to achieve good things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you were just talking then about the the improved facilities and different things like that. Like, I think your career was probably quite an interesting time, because when you first started, things were quite basic still. And like, obviously you talk about Hereford and Tony Ford's methods, but just across the board, and then obviously, yes, okay, I know you're going up through the leagues, but I think you're also going through a time where, as you say, sports science is becoming more important, nutrition's becoming more important. Did you find that as well, that you sort of, you could see that difference and how much difference it was making?
Yeah, because I went from a Yazoo protein shake on my way home from Hereford to whey protein, and it might be something so small, but if you've got proper quality protein within half an hour of your session, and then you've got a incredible nutritious meal, and you don't need to travel for it, or pop into a local supermarket or anything like that. I mean, we went from, when I first signed for Bournemouth at 24 years old, we'd train at one place. En route back to the stadium before we did gym, we'd stop off at, it was like a cricket club, and it'd be soup and sandwiches, and then we'd go do our gym session. And then when we were in the Championship, it was like all on one side. The chefs would have turkey, eggs, mushrooms, tomatoes, smoothies, berries, everything set out for you. And then if you wanted anything extra, you just say to the chef, "Oh, can I have an omelette this morning? Can I have this? Can I have that?" They'd be absolutely amazing. And after, you'd have all your lunch set out. You'd have lean protein source of choice, red meat. You'd have fish choice. You'd have all your different vegetables. You can't go wrong. It's absolutely incredible. But when you're in the lower leagues, you've just got to do the best you can and prep. And if I'd have prepped a little bit better in my younger days, I really do believe I'd have climbed the ladder a little bit quicker. Because I don't know about you guys as fans, but looking back, after about 70 minutes, I was knackered. I was struggling to get through the last 20-25 minutes again. You might not notice it as much as I did when I was running around, but you should be able to feel good for 90 minutes to 100 minutes, run and I couldn't do that in my younger days. And when I had, things came easier to me, when I had everything on one side, you just got to utilize it, because you'll be surprised, actually, some of the top players in the world, they've got everything that they could ever need, and whether it be masseuse, nutrition, and they don't utilize it the way they should. It's crazy.
So surprised. You just think everyone's always on it, and then hearing these stories, it's shocking, isn't it? You got all that at your disposal and you're not using it.
Oh, I've got some stories.
So obviously, next up then, is the Premier League, and is, the biggest league in the world, probably. What you'd always dreamt of playing there. I think we all probably do, don't we? We always dream of scoring that goal, or making that pass that's replayed for years to come. But certainly that first season, what moments do you pick out that you think of? Not necessarily goals, not necessarily, but just moments during that season of, wow, here I am, or this is the Premier League now.
Yeah, our first game against Villa was a little bit of an eye opener, because we battered them. We had like 60-odd% possession, played really well, lost 1-0, and they only had like one chance. Rudy Gestead header, across the ball, one clear-cut chance. It was kind of a half chance. It was a great header, and they beat us 1-0. And you're just thinking, that's obviously the standard. They need one chance, so stick it away. And that's what I find the biggest difference to be in the Premier League. Strikers and attacking players, they don't need 3 and 4 chances. If they get 3 and 4 chances, the reality is they're going to score 2 and 3 goals. It's really fine margins. So a lot more athletic, quicker, stronger. And when you watch it on TV, you don't realise how good they are as well, that awareness and where they are on the field. I used to watch Paul Scholes and think, no one even presses him. It's easy to play. And the reason being is because his awareness was that good. If you do press him, he'll pop it round the corner, play 1-2. So you've got to give him that space and just play against a man. So that was an eye opener. And I mean, I played the first game. We played Liverpool the second game, got hammered 4-0, I think it were. And I think Yeah, so I played the first 2 games, was on the bench against West Ham in the 3rd game, came on and scored my first Premier League goal. We beat them 4-3. Callum Wilson scored 3 goals that day. That was our first Premier League win. So that was my best memory early on in the Premier League, and that was at Upton Park as well, one of the best atmospheres I've played at in the Premier League. Just crowd was on top of you, scorching hot day, and yeah, that'll live long in the memory bank for sure, that one.
You rewind back to your honeymoon as well, when you said to your wife, I'm going to play in the Premier League, and then there you are scoring. I mean, what was that like for your family? That must have been so special.
I went home and said, "Told ya." No, I didn't really. No, it was really special. And like I mentioned before, I say it all the time to people, I look back and did I really appreciate it when I was in it? Because when you're in it, and you just take it day by day. And I'm a big believer of living in the present, not looking too far ahead, and not looking back either. I'm thinking what could have been. So yeah, I was just living in the moment, loving life. I was the type of person as well, which I never really got too high with the highs and too low with the lows. I'd always, if I had a stinker, I'd go home and try and put it to the back of my mind, spend time with the family, be present with them, because the last thing I want to do on a Sunday is be miserable and bring my kids down, bring my wife down. So I was pretty good at that, to be honest. But yeah, I think she believed in me secretly that I was going to play in the Premier League. She knew how much it meant to me. But she must have thought I was being mad, to be honest, when I get released from League Two clubs. So, yeah.
Actually, speaking about that, in terms of your relationship with Eddie Howe, how did you find he adapted as a manager? He's obviously managed across all 4 leagues. Did you find he did adapt in League One, Championship, Premier League? Did he change at all in terms of the way he manages players?
Yeah, he always, his man management got a lot better, speaking with players, because I think he had a bit of an eye-opener when he went to Burnley, because I know he inherited quite a few big characters, your Charlie Austins, your Keith Treacy's, and some of them other lads, quite big characters who won't think twice of gobbing off and stuff like that. So I think his man management improved a lot, and speaking to his players and being open. If you're out of the team, this is why you need to improve this, you need to improve that. And I don't think I don't think in his earlier days he kind of liked that part of it, because he's actually such a nice guy, but he's developed that real ruthlessness streak in a good way. Whereas training's got to be on it. If your standards slip, I'll be on you like a ton of bricks. But off the field, one of the most approachable guys you'll ever meet. So I think he had that balance brilliantly. And you know, I go up and watch Newcastle train whenever I can. I never went last season, but went the season before. And his intensity of training levels, you train how you play, basically, and you can't, you know, just sack training off and turn up on a Saturday and perform. So the way he demands things from his players is incredible. It really is. And I actually love watching his sessions as well. Sometimes you can be sat in a meeting room and he'll be explaining this drill. He'll have arrows everywhere, and you're thinking, how on earth is this going to work? And we go out on the training field and it's put together beautifully. It's like artwork. And some of the sessions, especially pre-season drills, back in the day, it was like, right, 12-minute run, this and that. But he'd sort of use the old pitch and he'd set up like different patterns. So you'll be one bit will be like the sports science team, you'll do fast feet, and then you move on to the next stage and it'll be like an aerobic run. Next stage you'll be 1v1 against defender, get a shot away. Once you attack, you become defender moves on to the next stage, and it's a rotation of the whole pitch, and it's disguised running, and just the way he puts on his sessions, there's so much thought and detail that goes into it, and his coaching staff as well, they're absolutely brilliant with it.
Yeah, what's he like, Eddie Howe, in terms of, you know, in those big moments in the changing rooms? You know, is he big speeches, or is it, you know, you've put your work in on the training pitch, you know what you're all doing, you know, and give you that belief to go out on the pitch and do what you do?
So yeah, there's a lot of tactical information, especially before the game. We'd always meet a little bit earlier, and we'd go into like a quiet room. With home games, we had like a separate room where we just walk through our set pieces and and tactical play and stuff like that, just to give you that bit of a refresher. And then obviously go out, implement it. Half time, it depends how good or bad you've been. If you've been awful, he'll let you know about it. I was the type of person who needed a bit of a rollicking, rather than an arm around the shoulder, and he knew what players needed what. If it was me, I'd either get dragged at half time or a bit of a rollicking. I remember Birmingham, we beat them 8-0. We were 3-0 up at half time. Was it 3-0? It was about 3-0 at half time, I think. And they'd had a man sent off, and I didn't play particularly well. I was well off it with my touch and stuff. And he hammered me at half time, and said, "You need to be better, this and that." And anyway, I ended up scoring a hat-trick second half. That was my first career hat-trick. And I knew why I was so bad first half, and it never happened again. I'd underfueled. I didn't eat enough food before the game because I wasn't hungry. At half time, I always take my dates with me banana, rice cake, bit of honey, just chance I need a bit of a top me up and stuff. And I hydrated properly, and I went out. I felt so much better. So yeah, it's getting that balance, and he's got a lovely balance to him, and that's why players want to play for him as well. You've got a lot of them Newcastle players as well who could potentially move on to, I know Newcastle are a big club, but your Bruno Guimaraes has had a bit of interest and stuff. But you can just tell he loves playing for him, and all these players just want to run for him and want to work hard for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you spent 9 amazing years at Bournemouth, and it must have been really tough for you when you left. I mean, can you kind of explain that period of time towards the end of your time at Bournemouth, and then your move away from then? Like, how was it kind of leaving?
Yeah, so I was in my last year of my contract, and we were about 3-4 months into the season, and I'd really kicked a ball, to be honest. We'd signed quite a few new players. I get clubs are trying to evolve, and I was 31 at the time, 32, something like that. So still a good age, I felt. So I said to Eddie, we had an open conversation on, I think it was like a Thursday, around November time. I said to him, look, I'm in my last year of my contract. I'm more than happy to fight for my place, but if I've not played any football by the end of my contract, then I'm not going to be in a good place, especially at my age, and I want to play football, basically. And I just said, look, if the club are willing to give me an extension, and that'll take me to my 10 years at the club, then I'll get my head down, I'll work hard. I've got a little bit of, financial stability as well then. And he just said, look, I've spoken to the club. They don't want to offer you a contract, an extension because of your age, and we're looking to bring in younger players to the club. I said, yeah, that's fine. But if I haven't kicked a ball in January, can I go out on loan to get some football? And he stuck to his word. He let me go out on loan to Hull, played 14 games for them. I think I scored 3 goals, got a couple of assists as well, played really well, played as a 10, and sometimes on the wing as well. Loved working under Nigel Atkins, great manager. And unfortunately, he left the club at the end of the season. And I was toying, if he stayed, I'd have signed for Hull. It was a long way from Bournemouth, to be honest. 289 miles from my house, to be precise. So that was a bit of a slog, to be honest, because I was spending like 3 weeks away from my family at the time. Right. My wife had a lot to, 2 young kids, and she'd travel up whenever there was a half term. I'd play the game on the Saturday, and then I'd travel home, which would take me about 5.5, 6 hours. Spend the Sunday with them, and then travel back up on the Monday. Nigel Atkins was really good. He said you can have Mondays off, but I wasn't the type of person to take the Monday off, because at the end of the day, what are the lads going to think? Look at him, he's having every Monday off. So I didn't do it often. I did it every so often, and then we just made it work for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And then and then left Bournemouth. They put on a really nice ceremony at one of the last games of the season, because the Premier League goes on a couple of weeks after the Championship season finishes. And we played Sheffield United just before I left Hull, and I broke my toe. Sheffield United's defender stood on my toe and broke it, so my loan spell effectively ended a game before it was due to. So they put on a nice at one of the home games, give me a big trophy and give me a lovely send-off. It was great to get the send-off from the fans as well, and Eddie Howe said some nice words and stuff in the changing room and stuff. So that was really nice. But yeah, it was a really difficult time for me because my kids grew up there. They were born in Bournemouth, and to be leaving, and it was difficult. It really was. And yeah, so broke my toe. Could do absolutely nothing in off season. Couldn't run, couldn't do anything. I was doing upper body work and stuff and trying to tick over with my yoga and mobility. And then no club really came in for me until a week. I think there was about a week, 10 days left of pre-season. So I had to do my own pre-season as well with a broken toe. So that was tough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Well, so what did you? I mean, how do you do that? How do you prepare for that? How do you? Obviously, you said what you were doing. You were doing yoga, trying to keep active, trying to keep doing things. But without a club, you don't know what you're going to be doing, where you're going to be.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue what was next because I know Hull really liked me, but they didn't have a manager. Nigel left, and it was a million miles away from Bournemouth. So I kind of just kept my feet on the ground and kept myself as fit as possible. Was doing runs, but it was agony running on my broken toe because every time you put a trainer on, you never realise how much you need a little toe, to be honest, until you break it. And I went away on holiday, and every time I got in the pool, I ended up somehow just smashing it off the side. I don't know how. And it was always feeling a little bit better then going back. So I just thought I'm gonna have to keep myself fit, but no club was coming in, and I just thought as a Premier League player last year, why isn't the club wanting to take a punt on me? Because I went to Hull, I scored 3 goals, I got plenty of assists, performed well. Surely a Championship club's gonna want to come in for me, but it just dragged and you see all these clubs going back to pre-season, keeping themselves fit. 3-4 weeks in, I'm like, no other clubs come in, and luckily, just with 10 days left of pre-season, QPR rung my agent and they signed me. I went and met Les Ferdinand, and Mark Warburton was the manager at the time, signed my contract. First run in, it was like Bronco runs, which was an absolute burner. My broken toe still was in agony. I had to strap it up, and whilst I was doing the medical as well, I just kept it quiet. I couldn't tell them I broke my toe because they didn't want to sign the contract.
Yeah.
And I got, after a week's worth, 10 days of pre-season, I got chucked on for 35 minutes away at Stoke City, first game of the season. So still in a bit of pain, but I was just using Compeed and strapping it up. And after about 4 weeks of the season started, you forget about it and just crack on. So yeah, that was a really difficult period because I thought, am I going to get a club at one point? Because I didn't want to drop to League One, League Two again because I still knew I had loads to give at Championship, if not like Premier League as well.
Didn't call it Tony Ford, Mark, during that period and do some one-on-one sessions of upper body stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, in the end, it's obviously QPR. Then you went back up towards home for a bit of non-league action. What was that? What was that like? Going sort of, you had a couple of years up at Cleethorpes, didn't you? How did you? Firstly, why did you make that decision? And then how did you get on? How did you find it?
Yeah, so going back slightly, obviously QPR, I was there for nearly a season. It was a really good time. I spent a lot of time on the M25 travelling from Bournemouth. All season I was leaving my house at 5:30. I stayed over twice a week because we had to be in at 8 a.m. Mark Warburton was brought up in like London, and I think he was into the stock market and stuff like that. So he was really business minded, wanted the lads in early, and so I had to give myself like 2.5, 3 hours on that M25 every morning. So that was tough. And I stayed injury-free all season. I was on 25 games for QPR at the time. And I had a stipulation in my contract that if I played 26 games, I'd get a new contract. And I was due to play my 26th game on the Saturday and COVID it on the Friday. So I didn't get to play it. And so we had a little mini break, when I think we had 9 games left to play the season. We were at just below the playoffs, point behind 6th or 7th place. I can't remember who was in that place at the time. And went back, did a little mini pre-season, thought I'm going to get my extended deal here. And just before the game started back up, Mark Warburton spoke to me and said, look, because we're no fans in the stadium, finances, we're not going to play you for that game. We can't keep you on the same contract you're on. So that kind of killed that a little bit. I ended up leaving QPR and spending a little bit of time away with the family and stuff, a bit more flexibility to my life. And we had a conversation, me and the wife, and she just said, why don't you just see if you still got the buzz for it, go back and play and stuff. And at the time, Sam Ricketts was at Shrewsbury and he wanted to sign me. So I went back to Shrewsbury. Really enjoying my football under him, actually. And he had a real good, he wanted to play like Liverpool, 4-3-3, high press. Started really well, scoring goals, assists. He, unfortunately, after, I think it was about 5 or 6 games, he got sacked. So when he got sacked, Steve Cottrell came in, who released me as a young lad at Shrewsbury. And yeah, he never played me really after that. So kind of left Shrewsbury. And I thought there's a lot happening here. And I kind of lost the love of, there were no fans in the stadium for a short spell as well. And the fans make football the beautiful game it is. They really do. And I love playing in front of fans. It's that style of player I am, out on the wing, doing tricks and trying to get them on the feet. So I loved that. And it kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. So I came away from it. And I ended up doing a stint with Clitheroe because I got the opportunity to donate my wages to the local food bank, and I got to tick a box as well to play with my brother before I actually just knocked it on there. My brother was at Clitheroe, so I played 1.5 games before he got injured. so he got a bit of an injury, so we only played 1.5 games together, I think it were.
It's amazing you did that. As a player, did you always have one eye on what you wanted to do after playing? So, being a manager or anything, was that ever on the cards? Or were you kind of just see what happens?
I thought I'd played till I was about 40 years old, to be honest. It got cut a lot shorter than... I think COVID was a big turning point for me. When I signed for Shrewsbury, I spent quite a bit of time, 3 weeks at a time, and same with Hull, away from my kids. And my youngest daughter at the time, she really struggled with it, me being away. And I just thought there's a lot more to life than being away from your family all the time. And my kids were at that age now where I felt like they needed me. So that was a big reason for taking a step back. And it's an important part of my life to be present with your kids, especially, when they've got netball. My oldest daughter does a bit of boxing now as well, and there's clubs on all the time, and I want to be there for the sports day. So coming away from the games give me a little bit more flexibility. But going back to your question, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do at probably the age of 32. But then at 33, when I was at QPR, I set up my Instagram, the Foodie Footballer, just tried to inspire others to become healthier and give them as much insight into reaching peak performance. Whether you're an athlete, a businessman, whoever, you want to have that proper mental clarity, to perform at a high level. And I did that, and it kind of caught on, and I had a lot of people reaching out to me. And at the same time where I was toying, because I had a few contract offers on the table to carry on playing football, I'm like, do I carry on playing? Do I come out of it? The LFE approached me to go on the life skills programme for the 72 English Football League clubs to deliver nutrition workshops. And I was like, this opportunity might not come up again. So that's where I just jumped at the chance, and I thought, look, I'm going to have to throw myself into this. I'll set up my business, the Foodie Footballer, and there is a long life after football. And yeah, I'm loving what I'm doing now, and I don't have any regrets.
Yeah, is that something? So is that what you do sort of full time? Is you obviously go? Do you still do that? Do you still go and talk to people about nutrition and how they can work better?
Yeah, I love it. I'm not going to sit here and say, look, I don't miss that match day feeling, because I've got to keep myself busy, because if I sit around too long and think about, playing football on a Saturday in front of 50, 60,000 people, then I might get a little bit sad and a bit down. I keep myself busy. I love doing what I'm doing now. I love going into clubs, businesses, hopefully schools soon, fingers crossed. I've got a few irons in the fire, and I'm hoping that comes off. I just love inspiring others. So yeah, I usually get around 45, 50 bookings a season from EFL clubs. Kids as young as under 9s up to 21s, and I'll go in and deliver a workshop based around nutrition for peak performance, and then we'll get them in the kitchen cooking, whether it be healthy snacks, healthy pre, post-match meals, smoothies, and just trying to help them become healthier. And I'm a big believer in not just fueling for that one performance, but fueling for longevity and overall health as well, because you'd be surprised, like the amount of sports people that get sold these well-marketed products which are ridiculous for their health. You see, even at the top level, they're smashing energy gels down them and energy drinks all the time, and it's not needed if you fuel properly.
You should come back as our nutritionist at Edgar Street. I think that would be a really nice role for you. What's your top dish then? What's the signature special?
Signature special. So two of my favourite meals ever, which I like to cook at home. I just love a good ribeye steak with, garlic and rosemary butter, and then roasted sweet potato wedges with some veg on the side, like a Mediterranean vegetable dish, or teriyaki salmon. My daughter loves teriyaki salmon and Japanese food. She's requested that tonight, actually. So salmon with, we usually do it with like roasted broccoli, sweet potato, and some roasted corn as well. So yeah, we like to mix it up though. I love a homemade curry. I could talk food all day, to be honest.
To submit an application if you want to come down with me, I reckon.
Master Chef, that's what you need to go on. So we'll do a couple of quick fire questions then, just to sort of finish this off. So who's your favourite teammate? Who's the best teammate you think you've played with?
In terms of natural ability,
technical, mentality, anything really that you think makes a good player.
Yeah, I'll give you a few from different positions. So finisher, Jermaine Defoe, unbelievable finisher. He's played at the top level, absolutely phenomenal, like really a great guy, lived his life right as well, ticked his boxes with nutrition. That's why he played at the top level for so long. Bar his injuries, I think who I'm going to say, like unbelievable awareness, ability, technical ability. Jack Wilshere, when he came to Bournemouth for a short spell, unbelievable. You probably saw him years ago play against Barcelona, and he was phenomenal. So yeah, unbelievable. There's so many, like Nathan Ake, unbelievable defender, great lad as well. But there's a lot in that team we had who played at a low level and worked their way up. I loved playing with Andrew Sermon. Like, he played for Norwich for a while, Southampton at top level. He just never give the ball away. Technically excellent. I'm naming too many here, aren't I? Matt Ritchie was thick on his day as well. And yeah, I mean, I loved personally, because there was a left winger playing with Charlie Daniels, because his goal against City, you'll probably remember, half volley, bar post, and then I think finished. But he just gave me the ball. We had a great relationship, and I mean, we had a squad of people who we weren't extra special. We just bought into the way we wanted to play and the philosophy and the patterns of play. And Eddie just made everyone a better player. He really did.
Yeah.
I reckon Richard Rose and Jamie Tolley are gutted they didn't make that.
Jamie Tolley.
Who's the toughest player you've come up against?
In terms of a fullback, Kyle Walker, just because he had everything. He had pace, he had power. He played in a team that kept possession, so he played as like an out-and-out winger. So you did most of your running backwards. So yeah, that was really difficult. I mean, Rooney was fantastic as well. Like, you know, he was coming towards the back end of his career when I played against Rooney. I had the pleasure of playing against Gerrard as well. Steven Gerrard, like some player. Well, there's that many to name, and they're incredible in their own right. The Liverpool team, I always remember their team when they had Firmino in his prime, Mane and Salah, and it's like unbelievable for free, really was.
Yeah, it was an incredible era, really, the Premier League then. So yeah, I can understand why you're struggling to nail it down. So this is a question that I want to ask you, which is that Jason Tindall has a certain television persona. Yeah, is he like that in real life, or is he? Obviously, I know he's professional because he wouldn't be where he is now if he wasn't. But is that his personality?
He's just a legend. He really is. He comes across in the media like as you know, he's one of the lads. But when he's coaching, I don't think unless you've seen him coach, he doesn't get enough credit. His coaching ability is second to none. He obviously went in as manager for a season at Bournemouth. Did really well. Was just unfortunate that he didn't get off of the contract. You know, he got the best out of his players that season. Junior Stanislas, it was the first season for a long time that he stayed injury free for most of it, and he ended up scoring about 14 goals from the left wing because he knew how to manage him. Junior was the type of player that he didn't need to train every single day. He had to manage him because of his recent injuries and stuff, and he knew that. And they bounce off each other. Eddie's really structured and, you know, to the point, and whereas Jason, they call him Mad Dog for a reason. He's mad. He is quality. I can't rate him highly enough.
You're in the Premier League. Genuinely, was England actually ever on the cards? Were you actually setting your sights like, I want to try and get into international football, or were you ever like, did you know you were ever close at all, or what was the kind of situation with that?
You've always got to dream big, and I feel like my statistics probably didn't warrant me playing for England. I mean, my performances were good, but I think if you're playing for England, you look at your wingers of today. Saka is scoring goals and getting assists every week. Phil Foden, he had that incredible season, and to break into the England squad, I can't remember who it was back then, to be honest, who was on wings. There was always talk of the left wing of England never being the best.
I was going to say, you know.
So there was an opportunity there. Obviously bottled it, didn't I? but yeah, I always think back to the left. If we had a Ryan Giggs back in that era, then we'd have probably won something. 92 was it? Something like that. 96 era. We always played Joe Cole or Paul Scholes from the left, didn't we? So I was, yeah. I never got any inkling that I was going to play for England, but you can only try, can't you?
Absolutely. What would you say is your most memorable goal in your career?
Yeah, 2. So the night we got promoted to the Premier League, we beat Bolton 3-0. I scored the first goal. The atmosphere that night was electric, amazing. And then we went out and had an incredible night out in town. That was on the Tuesday night, and we had to win on the Saturday as well to win the league. So it was, so we ended up beating Charlton 3-0 anyway and winning the league. So there was the goal against Bolton, and then the one we spoke about recent, the West Ham goal. They are my 2 favourites. They might not necessarily been the best finishes, the best strikes, but they were decent, and yeah, memory will definitely live with me forever.
Outside of Edgar Street, the most intimidating and best ground you've ever played in?
Most intimidating. So I hated, well, not hated, but it was horrible playing at Millwall they'd be throwing all sorts at you and stuff. And West Ham was a cracking atmosphere. It wasn't necessarily intimidating. I loved it. I thrived off a good atmosphere. Goodison Park was another one, really good atmosphere. You'd think your bigger grounds with 70,000 people would be more intimidating, but it wasn't, because they were set back a little bit.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily hear too much. Before the game you can, but when you're in it, you just crack on. Best stadiums, well, you're looking at your Emirates, your Etihads, and then your ones with a little bit of history, Old Trafford, Anfield. So again, it's like the players, there's too many for different reasons to really pinpoint, and special memories come with them all.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So obviously you played in every league in the Football League. Which was the most physically demanding, do you think? I mean, obviously, I know when you were younger, you said nutrition wasn't quite there. You weren't the same player that you maybe were when you were in the Championship or the Premier League. But which did you find quite physical?
I'd probably say, I mean, when you're out on the pitch, the Premier League's the most physically demanding. But because you haven't got as many games and you're not playing Saturday, Tuesday all the time, it's probably you have more recovery time and more sessions to prepare yourself, because now it's with the European fixtures. I know a lot of the Premier League clubs have got more fixtures, but yeah, I mean, when you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, so from the Championship downwards, really, because you're playing like with cup competitions, 50 odd games in a season, so they're all tough in their own manner. But yeah, you can't. That Premier League fixture of the intensity levels is next level. You can't compare it to conference football. Conference football and stuff, you get a good kick in, and they just, you'd have a sore neck from the long balls and stuff. Like it'd be like head tennis. So that was an eye opener. But yeah, it's Premier League when you're actually out there.
Final question from me. I can guess what this is, but what's your proudest achievement in the game?
Get myself to the Premier League, not just getting to the Premier League, but staying there for 4 seasons as well. I think getting there, it's not the easy bit, but being able to stay there, and when clubs are signing players all the time, we signed Jordan Ibe for 15 million, we're signing wingers, we signed, I think it was Riquelme from Atletico Madrid, and Wani Turbe from some Italian club, I think it were, and they were always trying to replace you and bring players in for that next young kid. And I spent long spells out of the team sometimes. I think it was either my second or my third season. I didn't kick my first ball until November the 24th, 27th. Second season, because Leicester had just won the league the year before. So I had to spend 3-4 months running whilst I wasn't in the team. And then I ended up playing that game, scoring the goal, and we won it 1-0. So yeah, thinking back to those moments, those challenging moments were it just builds you up to be a better person. It really does. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Well, look, thank you so much for chatting to us today, Mark. We really, really appreciate it. You're a busy man. We'll get everyone to, if you don't follow Mark already, we'll put everything on the screen for you. Make sure you look at what he's up to and eat healthy. Keep your nutrition high. But really great to speak to you, and great to hear about your stories from Bournemouth and obviously Hereford. Clearly, we've obviously got the ground in our backgrounds here, and just remember you running down that wing, just unbelievable player. And I think definitely we knew you'd play at a much higher level. You could see that at the time. So I think we're all so proud as Hereford fans that you went on and achieved what you did in the game. And we, as I said, we can always say that we were there when Marc Pugh started on the up.
Thank you. I loved it. Special times, and a big part of the journey as well. And they were the first club to obviously take a real chance on me and just play me consistently. I think with every player, young, old, you need to play week in, week out to get the best out of yourself. And whether I had a bad game or not at Hereford, they just backed your ability and kept playing you. So no, special times. Thank you for having me as well.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a real honour, and you're an inspiration to so many young people that they can make it in the game. So thank you so much for your time.